I speak now through the quiet air that surrounds you. My voice is not distant. It is the breath that brushes against your heart when you think no one sees your pain. I am Saint Gabriel, Archangel, the messenger sent to awaken what your spirit already knows, but your heart refuses to release. You have been chasing a love that heaven has already released from your story, and this pursuit has left you weary, confused, and broken. Yet even in your exhaustion, heaven has not turned away from you. The divine has been watching every step of your chase, every hope that flickered, every moment your soul whispered, "Maybe this time it will work." Listen closely. This message is not to condemn you, but to lift the veil of illusion. There are seasons when love becomes a test, when what you call destiny is only distraction. The person you have been reaching for was a lesson wrapped in longing, not the fulfillment of God's promise. While you were holding on to what could not remain, heaven was already preparing something far greater, something that carries the fragrance of peace instead of the weight of confusion. I have come to stop your running, to tell you that the silence you hear is not abandonment, it is protection. You were never meant to chase what cannot stay. What you thought was rejection was in truth the hand of God pulling you away from an imitation of love, so your heart could be reserved for the one who will recognize it without question. You must understand this. Every delay, every unanswered message, every door that closed was heaven's way of writing mercy into your path. For God saw what you could not see, the cracks hidden behind the charm, the pain concealed beneath the promises. The divine hand intervened, not to punish, but to protect. The story you were forcing was never aligned with your true destiny. Now, as you hear my words, something within you is beginning to awaken. You feel the resistance of your own soul against letting go, yet deep within, truth is stirring. Heaven does not want you to live in confusion. It calls you toward clarity, restoration, and a love that mirrors divine intention. The time has come to stop chasing shadows. The time has come to trust that the one meant for you is being prepared, not by your effort, but by the will of God. This message is a divine intervention. The light you will see next is not coincidence. It is confirmation. Be still. Heaven is moving, even when you cannot see. The weight of an unreturned love. There is a silence that only those who have loved deeply can understand, the kind that follows after you have given your heart completely and received only distance in return. You wake up with the same question echoing inside you. Why wasn't I enough? You replay conversations, analyze messages, and search for hidden meanings in every word that was left unsaid. The weight of an unreturned love presses upon your chest like a storm that refuses to pass. Archangel Gabriel speaks now to the soul caught in that storm. You have mistaken longing for destiny. You have mistaken resistance for pursuit. You believed that if you just loved harder, prayed longer, and waited patiently, something would shift. Yet heaven has seen how this waiting has drained your spirit. What you call loyalty has become a chain, and what you call hope has turned into silent suffering. Heaven never asked you to chase someone who keeps walking away. That ache in your chest each time you try to hold on to them is your soul's alarm, warning you that you are fighting against divine flow. Love, when it is ordained by God, never asks you to beg for presence or compromise your peace. The love that comes from heaven stands beside you. It does not run ahead or vanish behind. Saint Gabriel Archangel reminds you that true love, when divine, recognizes you immediately. It doesn't confuse or delay, it brings serenity, not anxiety. When your peace is always at risk, when you must constantly earn attention, when your worth depends on someone's response, that is not heaven's love. It is human attachment disguised as purpose. Heaven has watched your tears, but heaven is not silent because it is cruel. Heaven is silent because it waits for you to turn your gaze upward, to realize that your value was never meant to be proven by another person's affection. The one who walked away did not take your worth with them. What you lost was only the illusion that they could complete you. So now Archangel Gabriel whispers, "Release what never stayed. Do not chase what cannot return. For even now, the divine is lifting that burden off your heart. The moment you stop running toward what drains you, you begin walking toward what will heal you." Heaven saw the nights you cried. There were nights when your body lay still, but your spirit trembled beneath the weight of loneliness. You spoke no words, yet heaven heard the cries hidden inside your silence. Every tear that touched your pillow was counted. Every sigh that escaped your lips was written in the book of mercy. You believed no one saw you, but the angels did. Saint Gabriel Archangel stood near your bed when you thought the world had forgotten your name. You whispered prayers that never seemed to echo back. You begged for clarity, for a sign, for just one moment of peace. You tried to be strong, telling yourself that love is sacrifice, that enduring pain must mean faith. But heaven never asked you to suffer to prove devotion. The sorrow you carried was not a test of your worth. It was a signal that your soul had reached its breaking point. The angels gathered around you not because you were weak, but because you were precious. Even when your tears fell wordlessly, they became prayers that rose like incense before God. The divine never turned away. It watched the moment your hope began to dim, and it decided that intervention was needed. You were never abandoned. You were being rescued in silence. St. Gabriel Archangel speaks now. Heaven did not ignore you. It was preparing to lift you. Each night you wept was not wasted. Those moments became the soil where strength would grow. Every heartbreak became a doorway for divine healing. What felt like the end of your story was only the beginning of your transformation. You see, the pain you thought no one noticed became the very place where heaven began to write redemption. The loneliness that consumed you was the clearing where God would soon plant new love, one rooted in peace, not in pursuit. You are not unseen. You are chosen. And your tears were the baptism of a new season. The hidden reason the wrong love stayed so long. There are moments when the soul clings to what heaven is already trying to remove. You felt it, that quiet resistance each time the silence grew longer, each time their affection turned cold. Yet something inside you kept hoping, believing that if you held on just a little longer, something would change. The truth is that heaven was already whispering to your heart, asking you to release what could no longer walk with you. But you mistook that whisper for fear of losing them, when in fact, it was the beginning of your deliverance. Saint Gabriel Archangel reveals that there is purpose even in the presence of the wrong love. God never wastes an experience, even one wrapped in disappointment. The reason that person stayed so long was not because they were meant to complete your story, but because they were meant to awaken you to the parts of yourself you had buried. The ache you felt became the fire that refined your spirit. The waiting, the confusion, and the unanswered questions were not divine cruelty. They were divine construction. You see, the wrong love teaches you what true love must never be. It exposes the cracks in your self-worth, the places where you gave too much and received too little, the moments when you mistook attention for affection and comfort for connection. Heaven allows certain hearts to cross your path so you can learn discernment, not punishment. Without that painful reflection, you would not recognize the peace of what is to come. Every tear, every sleepless night, every conversation that ended with more questions than answers was a lesson written in sacred ink across your soul. Archangel Gabriel speaks. The one who hurt you was also the mirror through which heaven revealed your strength. You thought you were losing yourself, but in truth, you were being returned to yourself. You began to see that love without respect is not love at all, that passion without peace is not divine, that attachment disguised as devotion is not destiny. The wrong love stayed until your eyes could see clearly, until your heart stopped confusing chaos with connection. Sometimes God allows the counterfeit to come before the promise, so you can learn to recognize the real when it arrives. The wrong person's presence was a divine rehearsal for the right one, not because they carried the same qualities, but because they revealed what you must never accept again. Every unanswered message reminded you to stop seeking validation from what was already fading. Every argument that left your spirit heavy was heaven's gentle way of saying, "You deserve peace." The truth is that the wrong love could not leave until your soul was ready to stop chasing it. Heaven will never force what you refuse to release, but the moment your heart surrenders, the instant you say, "I trust what God removes as much as what He gives," everything begins to shift. That is when the angels step in, clearing space for divine alignment. The reason the wrong love stayed so long is that it had a sacred assignment: to show you that love is not something you beg for, but something that flows freely from what is meant for you. It came to reveal your endurance, your depth, your capacity to forgive, but also to awaken your discernment. It stayed until you remembered that your heart was never meant to be an altar for confusion. It lingered until you could stand before the mirror and say, "I am worthy of love that stays." Now heaven calls you into release. Do not mourn what was never meant to remain. The same God who allowed that chapter to unfold is the one who is now turning the page. The lessons have been learned, the healing has begun, and the future is already forming. Somewhere beyond your current understanding, someone whose soul resonates with your peace is being prepared. But they cannot find you if your heart is still chained to what left. Saint Gabriel, Archangel, reminds you, you are not being punished for loving, you are being prepared for receiving. You have graduated from the classroom of heartbreak, and heaven applauds your growth. What once broke you will no longer hold power over you, for the wrong love was never your failure. It was your initiation into divine clarity. Now, walk forward with the quiet strength of someone who knows that God never ends a story without already writing the next chapter in light. The spiritual trap of chasing what was never yours. There is a point in every soul's journey when desire blinds discernment. You begin to chase what feels powerful instead of what brings peace, mistaking emotional intensity for divine confirmation. The heart convinces itself that the louder the longing, the stronger the destiny. Yet St. Gabriel, Archangel, now speaks to awaken your spirit. Not everything that burns brightly comes from heaven. Some fires are sent to test your wisdom, not to warm your heart. You chased what was never meant to stay, not because you were foolish, but because your heart was searching for reflection. You saw light in someone who was only meant to teach you about your own. You tried to rescue what heaven had already released, believing your effort could rewrite divine timing. But love cannot be forced into alignment by willpower. When God closes a door, no amount of pleading will reopen it without cost to your soul. The spiritual trap lies in believing that persistence can turn disobedience into destiny. Archangel Gabriel reminds you that the enemy often disguises confusion as chemistry. The pull you felt was real, but not every pull is holy. Sometimes what feels irresistible is only the echo of your own unhealed places, calling out to be noticed. The more you chased, the more you fed the illusion that love can be earned through suffering. You began to confuse struggle with purpose, as if the constant pain proved how deep your devotion was. But heaven never measures love by how much you can endure. It measures it by how much peace it brings to your spirit. This is the danger of chasing what was never yours. It slowly teaches you to worship uncertainty. You start depending on small moments of affection like they are divine signs, reading meaning into silence, waiting for redemption that will never come from that person's heart. You shape your days around their absence. your prayers around their name until your faith becomes entangled with your fantasy. The spiritual trap closes when you begin to confuse waiting for God's promise with waiting for someone who was never His plan. Heaven wants you to see the truth hidden beneath the ache. You are not chasing love. You are chasing healing. You are hoping that the same person who caused your emptiness could somehow fill it. But healing does not come from the same hands that wounded you. It comes from surrender, from letting go and allowing God to restore what no human could fix. Every unanswered call, every ignored prayer, every painful silence was heaven pulling you back to yourself. Saint Gabriel Archangel says, "You cannot receive new wine while holding the broken jar of yesterday. The divine cannot pour the blessing meant for your future into a heart still occupied by yesterday's illusions. As long as you chase what was never yours, your arms remain too full to embrace what is coming. Heaven will not compete for space in your soul. The release must happen before the restoration can begin. You may think you lost something precious, but in truth, you escaped something that would have delayed your destiny. The love that constantly runs from you is not your test of faith. It is your invitation to freedom. Every time you choose to stop chasing, heaven moves closer. Every time you choose peace over obsession, your vibration rises toward divine alignment. You are not meant to chase. You are meant to attract what already recognizes your light. So stop running after what drains you. Stop trying to convince someone to see your worth. The moment you rest in your divine identity, the energy of pursuit is replaced with the energy of promise. That is when heaven can finally bring forth the one who doesn't need convincing, the one who sees you the way God does. You are not losing love. You are losing the illusion that love must be chased. The trap breaks the moment you understand that what is truly yours will never require you to betray your peace to keep it. Archangel Gabriel now stands beside you, commanding your heart to rest. Heaven's message is clear. What was never yours cannot be held, but what is meant for you will recognize your soul without effort. God's silence was protection. There are seasons when heaven grows quiet, and you begin to wonder if your prayers have disappeared into an empty sky. You kneel, you plead, and you wait, but the answers never seem to come. The silence becomes louder than any rejection, and your faith begins to tremble under the weight of uncertainty. Yet what you could not see then is what Saint Gabriel Archangel reveals now. God's silence was never absence. It was protection. Heaven heard every cry you uttered. Every time you asked, "Why doesn't this person love me the way I love them?" Or "Why won't God make this work?" The divine was already moving, already intervening, not by giving you what you wanted, but by shielding you from what would destroy your peace. You mistook unanswered prayers for neglect, but they were walls built by mercy. The same silence that hurt you was the sound of heaven blocking arrows you could not see. Archangel Gabriel says, "You begged heaven to open a door that God Himself was sealing shut." That is why it never worked, no matter how much you tried to fix it. You were not being punished, you were being preserved. If you had received what you thought you wanted, it would have led you away from the life heaven has written for you. The silence was not delay, it was redirection. Heaven knew what waited on the other side of that relationship, the loss of your light, the erosion of your joy, the compromise of your purpose. The divine stepped in and said, "No." You may not have heard it then, but that no saved you. It saved you from a lifetime of begging for love that should have been freely given. It saved you from sacrificing your worth for temporary attention. It saved you from mistaking toxicity for passion. While you mourned the absence of that person, heaven celebrated your survival. You were crying over what you thought was rejection, but heaven was rejoicing over your rescue. This is the paradox of divine silence. You feel abandoned, yet you are surrounded. You feel forgotten, yet you are being fiercely protected. God's quietness was the shield that kept you standing, when everything else was trying to break you. He allowed distance to grow so you could finally hear his voice above the noise of your longing. He allowed separation so you could see that not everyone you love is meant to walk into your future. Saint Gabriel Archangel stands beside you now and reminds you that divine protection often disguises itself as disappointment. Heaven closes certain doors with urgency because it knows what your heart cannot yet perceive. The unanswered message, the sudden silence, the fading connection, all of it was heaven's intervention. If you had known what waited behind that open door, you would have thanked God for every unreturned call. The person who walked away was not meant to be your punishment. They were your preparation. God's silence was the space where your soul could heal without interference. The quiet nights when you questioned your worth were the nights heaven was rebuilding it. Each tear that fell became a seed of discernment, and from those tears, wisdom began to bloom. You were never left alone. You were hidden. Hidden from further harm. Hidden from emotional traps. Hidden until your heart was ready to recognize real peace. The silence was the hand of God covering you as He reshaped your path. Every delay, every unanswered prayer, every lonely night was part of a divine choreography meant to lead you towards something pure, something whole, something worthy of the love you give. When you look back one day, you will understand. You will see that every closed door was the sound of heaven protecting you. You will thank God for saying no when your heart screamed yes. You will realize that what you thought was abandonment was actually the greatest act of love. The love of a father who refused to let you settle for less than divine design. So now, rest. Stop interpreting silence as loss. It was never loss. It was preservation. Saint Gabriel Archangel declares, what was quiet was sacred. What was denied was divine. You were not rejected. You were rescued. The celestial pause. When God stops time to heal you. There are moments in life when everything seems to stop. The calls stop coming. The opportunities fade. The people who once consumed your world suddenly go silent. You try to move forward, but every path feels blocked. You pray for answers and find none. What you are living is not abandonment. It is what Saint Gabriel Archangel calls the celestial pause, the sacred moment when God stops time to heal your soul before it walks into its next chapter. You see, heaven knows that constant motion hides deep wounds. When your heart is always chasing, always searching, you never stand still long enough to see what is broken within. And so, God presses pause. He allows the world to quiet down, not as punishment, but as preservation. This pause is heaven's hospital, where unseen wounds are treated in divine silence. You may feel lonely in this space, but you are never alone. Angels are working in the stillness, sewing together the torn pieces of your heart. Archangel Gabriel speaks. The pause is not delay, it is alignment. What you call waiting is heaven synchronizing your spirit with its timing. If God allowed you to continue running in the direction you were going, you would have missed the miracle He is preparing. So He slows your steps, sometimes through heartbreak, sometimes through loss, sometimes through silence, until you can finally hear the rhythm of His plan. The celestial pause is where destiny is rewritten in gold. When time seems to stand still, it is often because heaven is rearranging the pieces of your future. The person who left had to go so that the right one could find their way to you. The job that ended had to close so that your true calling could be revealed. The door that shut was not failure, it was divine rerouting. Everything that feels frozen in your life is being held still by God's hand so He can heal what movement was distracting you from. It is in the pause that revelation arrives. When the noise of the world fades, the whispers of heaven grow loud. God begins to reveal truths you could not see while your heart was racing after what was not meant for you. He shows you how much energy you spent trying to fix what only He could transform. He reveals the beauty of patience, the holiness of stillness, and the power of surrender. This sacred stillness is not meant to break you, it is meant to rebuild you. You are being stripped of what is temporary so that you may hold what is eternal. You are being refined like gold in fire, not to be destroyed, but to shine more purely when the time comes. The pause may feel endless, but it is doing the work of eternity in your soul. When you emerge from this season, you will not be the same person who entered it. You will carry the calm of one who has walked through the silence of heaven and found peace there. Saint Gabriel Archangel reminds you, when God pauses your life, it is not because he has forgotten you. It is because he is rewriting your alignment with precision. The delay you feel is heaven's way of saying, do not move until I make it safe. You are being protected from premature connections, from opportunities that would have drained your spirit, from relationships that would have distracted your destiny. So stop fighting the stillness. Sit within it. Let heaven perform its surgery. The wound you hide will close only when you stop trying to rush your healing. Trust the sacred rhythm of divine timing. The clock of heaven never runs late. When the pause ends, and it will, you will rise lighter, wiser, and ready to receive what was always meant for you. You may not see it yet, but this stillness is your sanctuary. God stopped time not to punish your heart, but to mend it. Heaven halted your chase so you could rest in truth. And when the moment arrives, when divine timing unfolds like morning light, you will know that the pause was never empty. It was the very place where heaven prepared your miracle. The alchemy of waiting, transformation in the wilderness. There comes a sacred season when your prayers are met not with answers, but with stillness. You stand in a place between what has ended and what has not yet begun. You look around and see no signs of change, no evidence of promise, only the echo of silence stretching across your days. This is the wilderness, a spiritual landscape that feels empty, yet holds the greatest transformation of your life. And it is here, Saint Gabriel Archangel says, that heaven performs its divine alchemy. Waiting is not punishment. It is transformation. It is the sacred furnace where faith is purified and your soul learns to trust without visible proof. In this wilderness, heaven takes the fragments of what broke you and begins turning them into light. Every moment that feels wasted is actually preparing you for what is coming. What seems like delay is where your character is refined, your discernment sharpened, and your heart cleansed of what cannot enter the next chapter. You cry out, asking why nothing is changing, and heaven answers, because you are. This waiting is not about the person you long for, nor about the circumstances you wish would shift. It is about you, your evolution, your elevation, your awakening. The alchemy of waiting changes your vibration. It strips away illusions, false dependencies, and hidden fears. It teaches you to draw strength from stillness instead of validation. Saint Gabriel Archangel whispers, do not fear the quiet place. The wilderness is not your end, it is your rebirth. Just as seeds must be buried before they bloom, your spirit must be hidden before it can flourish. You are underground now, unseen, but heaven knows exactly where you are planted. The darkness you feel is not punishment, it is gestation. God is nurturing roots that will anchor you deeply enough to hold the weight of what is coming. In the wilderness, distractions fall away. There are no voices competing for your attention, no false loves to chase, no illusions to maintain. There is only you and God. It is here that you rediscover your worth without applause, your peace without approval, your purpose without permission. The same pain that once defined you begins to dissolve into wisdom. The tears that once fell from heartbreak now water the soil of renewal. Heaven is teaching you the sacred art of waiting, not with desperation, but with trust. Every great promise carries a wilderness before it. Moses wandered before reaching the mountain. Joseph waited in silence before seeing his dreams fulfilled. Even Jesus walked into solitude before his mission began. So do not despise your waiting. It is the same divine process that shapes every chosen soul. God delays not to deny, but to develop. He is aligning your future with precision. The moment your spirit matures enough to carry his promise, the wilderness will open into abundance. Saint Gabriel Archangel reminds you that true transformation happens in the unseen. You may feel still, but energy is moving all around you. Heaven is orchestrating connections, preparing hearts, and clearing paths. What feels like isolation is actually insulation. God keeping you safe from influences that could disturb your growth. The wilderness protects the fragile miracle being formed within you. There will come a day when you step out of this quiet season and realize that the waiting changed you entirely. The things that once triggered you will no longer hold power. The fears that once ruled you will dissolve in peace. You will no longer crave what broke you, because heaven has replaced longing with discernment. That is the alchemy of waiting, turning grief into grace and emptiness into expansion. So stay where heaven has placed you, even when it feels barren. Do not rush the process or question the silence. The wilderness is where warriors are formed, prophets are purified, and destinies are born. The one who learns to wait without losing faith becomes unstoppable when the promise finally arrives. When this season ends, and it will, you will look back and see that the wilderness was never empty. It was filled with angels working in secret, transforming your pain into power. The heavenly blueprint, God's plan for a love that mirrors his heart. There is a love that heaven writes, one not born of impulse or circumstance, but of divine intention. This love is not rushed, it is not forced, it does not appear as chaos or confusion, for what comes from God carries peace as its signature. Saint Gabriel Archangel now reveals that God has already drawn the blueprint of a love that mirrors his heart, and this design cannot fail because it is sealed in divine timing. You have spent years trying to build relationships from fragments, hoping human effort could complete what was never spiritually aligned. But the truth is that every heartbreak, every disappointment, every wrong love that fell apart was heaven clearing the ground for something sacred to rise. The divine could not plant a pure seed in soil still holding the roots of what wounded you. So he waited patiently until your spirit was ready to receive love as he intended, not as survival, but as reflection of his own unconditional nature. God's plan for your love story is not a repetition of your past, it is restoration. Where there was confusion, there will be clarity. Where there was silence, there will be peace. Where there was rejection, there will be recognition. Saint Gabriel Archangel says, the one heaven sends will not need to be convinced to stay, for their soul will already recognize your light as familiar. The union God prepares is not built on attraction alone, but on purpose. It is two paths merging under the orchestration of heaven, so that together they fulfill a mission greater than either could alone. When God writes a love story, he does not rush it. Every detail is timed with divine precision. The moment you meet, the words exchanged, the timing of your healing, even the season of your surrender. Nothing happens by chance. Heaven crafts love not as a coincidence, but as a calling. The one meant for you will carry peace into your life, not anxiety. They will speak life into your dreams, not fear into your faith. They will not compete with your light, they will protect it. This divine love is patient because it is eternal. It is built in the same rhythm as heaven's heart, steady, calm, and enduring. It does not need to be chased or controlled. It flows, guided by trust. When you finally encounter it, your spirit will know, not because it feels overwhelming, but because it feels like home. That is how divine alignment works. It brings peace so deep it quiets everything that once screamed for attention. Saint Gabriel Archangel reminds you that God's blueprint for your love is already in motion. You do not need to force what is written. You only need to remain faithful, healing, and open. Heaven is aligning two hearts, refining them separately so they can unite without fracture. Right now, while you are growing, the one meant for you is also being transformed. Heaven is teaching them the same lessons you have learned: patience, integrity, forgiveness, trust. The two of you are being shaped to meet at the exact moment when both are ready to build something that will glorify God. You may not see this plan unfolding, but you are standing in its foundation. Every no you received was the divine protecting this architecture. Every delay was heaven ensuring your heart would not settle for less. Every season of solitude was God sketching the blueprint of a love that reflects His divine harmony. This is why nothing worked before. The blueprint had not yet been revealed. The foundation was not yet stable. The love heaven is preparing will not need constant reassurance because it will be anchored in faith. It will not fade in difficulty because it was built through prayer. It will not confuse you because it was born from clarity. When you encounter it, you will not question if it is divine. Your soul will simply rest. The one who arrives will understand your language of faith, your wounds, and your mission. They will not see your past as baggage, but as evidence of your endurance. This is God's promise. When the blueprint is complete, heaven will bring the construction to life. And when it happens, it will feel effortless, not because it lacks depth, but because it no longer demands struggle. You will realize that what you thought was waiting was actually preparation, and what you thought was loss was protection of something infinitely greater. Saint Gabriel Archangel declares, "Do not mourn what ended. Celebrate what is being written, for God's design for your love is already sealed in heaven, and when it manifests, no force on earth will be able to undo what the divine has joined." The prophetic sign, how heaven will reveal the one. There will come a moment when heaven begins to whisper through the ordinary, and signs will appear so unmistakably that your soul will tremble with recognition. You will not need to question, for the confirmation will not come through logic but through peace, the kind that settles deep inside and says, "This is the one." Saint Gabriel Archangel reveals that heaven never sends love without signs. The divine always confirms what it ordains, and when the one chosen for you approaches, heaven will speak through the smallest details to make your heart aware. You may see numbers repeating around you, like divine codes echoing the rhythm of God's timing. You may hear a song that feels written just for you, its lyrics mirroring the conversation your soul has had with heaven in secret. You may encounter dreams that replay the same message, not to confuse you, but to prepare you. These are not coincidences. They are heaven's language, guiding you gently toward recognition. The prophetic sign is never meant to rush you into love, but to awaken your spirit to what God has aligned. When the right person appears, they will feel strangely familiar, as though your souls have known each other across lifetimes of divine preparation. There will be no anxiety, no racing thoughts, only calm. You will not feel the need to prove yourself or question your worth, for in their presence, you will sense the reflection of divine acceptance. Archangel Gabriel says, "You will know the one not by how they ignite your fear, but by how they quiet it." The right connection silences insecurity. It does not feed it. Heaven will also confirm the union through alignment, not just emotion. Doors will open naturally, communication will flow without struggle, and timing will seem divinely orchestrated. What once felt delayed will begin to make sense. Every closed door from your past will reveal its purpose. You will see that if any of those old relationships had remained, they would have blocked this sacred connection from forming. God's preparation becomes clear only in hindsight. And when the sign appears, you will finally understand the perfection of His timing. Saint Gabriel Archangel reminds you that the prophetic sign does not come to the impatient, but to the surrendered. You cannot see heaven's signals while still holding on to what God has already removed. The light of confirmation can only reach a heart that is uncluttered by confusion. That is why the silence had to come first. Heaven had to clear the noise so you could recognize the melody of truth. Do not look for signs out of desperation. Do not chase omens as if they guarantee destiny. True confirmation never contradicts peace. When the sign comes, it will not cause obsession. It will bring assurance. It will not demand pursuit. It will invite rest. The one meant for you will draw you closer to God, not away from Him. They will speak life into your purpose, not distraction into your spirit. Perhaps the sign will arrive through divine repetition, a name you keep hearing, a symbol that keeps reappearing, a sudden inner calm when you least expect it. Or perhaps it will come quietly, in a prayer you didn't know you needed, answered in the simplest of ways. Heaven speaks differently to every soul, but always with the same purpose: confirmation, not confusion. The more you walk in alignment, the clearer these divine signals become. God does not hide His will from those who seek Him with sincerity. When you are ready, the signs will no longer feel like riddles. They will become revelations. You will feel the presence of Saint Gabriel Archangel near, guiding you toward what has been written since before your birth. The one meant for you will not enter your life by accident. They will arrive as fulfillment of prophecy. And when that moment comes, your soul will know. It will not be the fire of infatuation, but the stillness of peace. You will feel heaven standing beside you, whispering that every delay, every tear, every heartbreak was leading to this. The one before you will not be a test, but a testimony, proof that God never forgot your prayers. Saint Gabriel Archangel declares, the sign will come soon, and when it does, do not question it. Trust what brings peace. Trust what carries light. For heaven reveals the one not to tease your heart, but to fulfill its promise. The test before the promise, recognizing counterfeits. Before every divine blessing, there comes a test, a final mirror that reveals whether your heart has truly healed, or if it still seeks the familiar pain disguised as love. This test often arrives in the form of a counterfeit, someone who looks like what you prayed for, speaks the words you long to hear, and mirrors everything you thought you wanted. But Saint Gabriel Archangel warns, not every light comes from heaven, and not every connection that feels intense is sacred. The closer you get to your divine promise, the stronger the imitations become. Heaven allows these counterfeits to appear, not to confuse you, but to measure your discernment. The counterfeit exists to confirm your growth. In your past, you might have fallen for attention dressed as affection, passion that disguised possession, or charm that concealed emotional absence. But now, after all your seasons of waiting, heaven will see if you have learned to recognize peace over pleasure. This is the test before the promise, the moment when your spirit must decide between what is immediate and what is eternal. Archangel Gabriel says, the enemy does not tempt you with what you reject. He tempts you with what you desire, just 1 degree off from the truth. The counterfeit often comes when you are closest to breakthrough. When your spirit is weary, your hope feels fragile, and your heart begins to wonder if God has forgotten you. It enters as validation, promising quick fulfillment, mimicking divine timing but lacking divine substance. If you listen closely, though, you will sense the dissonance. Counterfeit love rushes what heaven allows to unfold. It demands clarity before its time. It pulls rather than aligns. You will know the difference by what happens to your peace. Divine love expands your calm. Counterfeit love disturbs it. Divine connection inspires you to pray more. Counterfeit love distracts you from prayer entirely. The right person will bring you closer to God's light, but the wrong one will dim your fire under the illusion of connection. Saint Gabriel Archangel reveals that discernment is the weapon heaven gives to those who have suffered enough to value truth. Use it wisely. When you meet someone who feels powerful, pause. Do not rush to label them as the one. Observe the energy behind their presence. Do they bring stability or chaos? Do you feel rest or anxiety when they speak? Divine love will never require you to lose yourself to keep it. Counterfeits always demand compromise. They test your boundaries, drain your focus, and blur your connection with heaven. Remember, the devil does not destroy destiny by force. He does it through distraction. This is why the test before the promise feels so convincing. It mirrors what you prayed for, but it lacks the essence of God. The conversation feels intense, the timing feels perfect, but something inside you will whisper, "This is too soon." That whisper is not fear. It is your spirit recognizing the difference between imitation and intention. Saint Gabriel Archangel says that true love comes with confirmation, not confusion. The right one will bring peace that grows, not passion that fades once it gets what it wants. Do not let loneliness push you into what looks divine, but drains your light. The counterfeit comes to see if you have learned to protect your peace. Heaven will not stop it from appearing, because every test must be faced to prove the lesson is learned. This is your final refining fire, the moment your no becomes your shield. Say no to the counterfeit, and the promise will come swiftly after. Every great destiny faces imitation before revelation. Just as gold is tested by fire, hearts are tested by desire. Do not be deceived by resemblance. Discern essence. The counterfeit speaks to your wounds, but the divine speaks to your wholeness. The counterfeit flatters your ego, but the divine nourishes your spirit. The counterfeit feels urgent, but the divine feels eternal. The counterfeit appears when you still seek closure, but the divine arrives when you no longer need it. Saint Gabriel Archangel declares, "You have come too far to fall for imitation. The test is not to break you, but to prove you ready for what is real. So be still, listen to the whispers of your peace, and trust that the promise follows immediately after the counterfeit's departure. Heaven is not testing your worth, it is confirming your wisdom. And when the true one arrives, you will know not by the spark, but by the silence that feels like home." The divine encounter, when two destinies finally align. There will come a sacred day when heaven's orchestration reveals itself so perfectly that you will know you have stepped into divine alignment. The prayers you whispered in silence, the tears you thought were forgotten, the waiting that stretched across countless nights, all of it will converge into one holy moment. This is the moment Saint Gabriel Archangel calls the divine encounter, when two destinies prepared in different seasons of surrender finally meet under the light of divine timing. It will not happen through effort or striving. It will not come from searching or chasing. It will unfold naturally, as if heaven itself guided your steps to intersect at the exact point written long ago. You may cross paths in a moment so simple it almost seems ordinary. A quiet conversation, a shared glance, a calm familiarity. Yet within it, your spirit will awaken with certainty. You will not need signs to convince you, because the peace in your soul will be the greatest confirmation of all. Saint Gabriel Archangel reveals that when two hearts healed by heaven meet, recognition happens beyond the mind. It is soul recognizing soul, light greeting light. You will feel not excitement that burns and fades, but a deep serenity that anchors you. The energy between you will not rush, it will breathe. You will sense that this connection has purpose, that it was not born of human timing, but of divine appointment. And for the first time, love will not feel like a chase, and it will feel like a rival. This encounter will not demand you to perform, to prove, or to pretend. It will honor who you have become in the wilderness. The one who stands before you will not be intimidated by your light or burdened by your past. They will see the beauty in your healing, the strength in your stillness, the faith that carried you through your storms. You will recognize in their presence the same refinement you endured. Two souls who walked through their own deserts to meet at the river of divine fulfillment. God's timing never fails. He does not unite two hearts prematurely, because premature union cannot hold the weight of eternal purpose. The divine waited until both of you had learned what love is not, until both hearts had been purified from illusions and attachments. When this alignment occurs, you will understand why every delay was necessary. Every wrong love was preparing you to recognize this right one. Every silence was creating the space where your souls could finally meet in truth. Archangel Gabriel says, "The one heaven sends will not be a replacement. They will be revelation." This person will not simply fill your loneliness, they will awaken your mission. Together, you will create peace around you, drawing others closer to God through the example of your love. This is not a relationship built on need, but on overflow. Two vessels filled by heaven, pouring into each other without depletion. The divine encounter marks the beginning of partnership with purpose, a love that serves heaven's plan. You will know you are standing in divine alignment when everything about the connection feels supported by grace. Conversations flow easily. Misunderstandings dissolve before they can wound. The energy of peace expands wherever you walk together. You will feel heaven breathing upon your union, not to control it, but to bless it. This is how you recognize the real. Divine love brings rest to what was once restless, healing to what was once broken, and vision to what was once lost. There will still be challenges, for even sacred unions are tested, but the foundation will hold because it was built in prayer. You will no longer fight alone, for heaven will have sent you a companion who intercedes with you, not against you. You will see God's hand in the smallest gestures, a word spoken at the right time, a shared silence that feels holy, a mutual peace that no distance can break. You will understand that the divine encounter is not only about romance, but about restoration of faith in divine timing itself. And when you look into their eyes, you will realize that this love does not erase your past, it redeems it. Every unanswered prayer, every painful goodbye, every lonely night now reveals its purpose. You will see that nothing was lost. It was all leading here to this sacred meeting under heaven's gaze. Saint Gabriel Archangel declares, "This is the love heaven has written for you, not born of haste, but of healing, not of fear, but of faith. Guard it, nurture it, and let it be the reflection of divine harmony on earth." Closing revelation and prayer of release. Now the time has come to let heaven complete what it began within you. You have walked through heartbreak, silence, transformation, and revelation. You have shed the illusion of love that was never meant to stay and learned the sacred language of divine timing. Saint Gabriel Archangel stands before you now, not as a distant messenger, but as a companion in your renewal, to lead you through the final act of release. You do not need to carry the pain of what ended any longer. What once defined your sorrow now becomes the altar where your faith stands restored. Every tear you cried has become holy water, cleansing your path. Every unanswered prayer was heaven's gentle redirection towards something greater. The one you once begged to stay was never your completion. They were your classroom. You have graduated from that lesson, and now heaven asks you to open your hands. Saint Gabriel Archangel speaks. Release the name, release the memory, release the weight. Do not cling to what was meant only to awaken you. When you release the wrong love, you are not losing anyone, you are returning to yourself. The space that empties within you now will not remain vacant. It will soon be filled with divine peace, the same peace that rests in heaven's heart. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Allow the silence around you to become sacred ground. In this stillness, you are no longer waiting. You are ready. Repeat these words softly in your heart as Gabriel guides your spirit. God of mercy and light, I surrender all that was never mine to carry. I release every attachment that keeps me bound to yesterday. I forgive those who could not stay and bless them on their path. I trust that your will is greater than my longing, and that the love you prepare for me will reflect your peace. Purify my heart from all confusion. Heal the places where my hope has grown tired. Let my soul rest in your promise. If I must wait, let me wait with faith. If I must walk alone, let me walk with purpose, for I know that you never withhold what you have destined. Amen. As those words rise from your heart, heaven begins to move. Angels lift the heaviness from your spirit, replacing it with clarity. You may feel warmth in your chest, a still calm in your breath, a quiet knowing that something within has shifted. That is the sound of chains breaking, the unseen moment when the soul steps into freedom. Gabriel now declares, you are no longer bound to the ache of yesterday. Heaven has rewritten your name in peace. The waiting is no longer about longing. It is about readiness. The one God has prepared will find you in the right season, and you will recognize them not by the thrill of the heart, but by the silence that feels like home. Walk forward now without fear. Do not rush the promise, for it will meet you when both paths are ready to merge. Trust that every moment from this day forward carries divine order. You have survived the fire, and now you stand refined, radiant, and free. What left was never your loss. It was heaven's exchange. Saint Gabriel Archangel blesses you with this final revelation. When you stop chasing, heaven starts aligning. When you stop holding on to what hurts, love begins to heal. When you choose peace over pursuit, destiny opens its doors. You have not been forgotten. You have been preserved for the one whose soul is written beside yours in the heart of God. So go in peace. The season of chasing has ended. The season of becoming has begun. Heaven is near, and the sign will appear soon.